Everyone. Welcome to Optimized for Humans. My name is Usha. I'm your podcast host and executive coach and consultant, and I am having the best time talking to leaders from across different organizations about AI and how we can build organizations that are optimized for humans but leveraged with AI. Today, I'm excited to be speaking with Hagan Kappler, who's the co-founder and CEO of Daisy. Hagan, welcome to the show. I'm thrilled to speak with you today. I'd love to start by asking you to introduce yourself a little bit and tell us what excites you about this topic.
Thank you so much, Yusha. I am Hagan Kappler, and I'm the CEO, as you said, and co-founder of Daisy. What excites me about this topic is just kind of the many ways that AI can make your life more effective and efficient, and just kind of help to boost kind of creativity, not kind of take it away. So I think that point around optimization is great. And I'll get anywhere from what are some ways to help me plan a vacation to travel, like for work travel, given we're a startup and I'm trying to, I've got network across the country, to helping with my kids and figuring out how to, do something fun with them over the weekend, to, optimizing a supply chain, and pushing and prodding AI to help figure something out there. So, I just think in every kind of element of life, there's ways to kind of make things, easier. And it's almost like anytime you're working on something that feels like you're doing something that's manual, you just, you start to think, I know that there's now an easier way to do this. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's so many, I think, new opportunities that it brings up on like so many domains of
Yeah.
our lives.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes like one of the reframes I really do want to bring to the table is like, it's not just a tool, it's really like an entire intelligence that you have available to you.
Right.
Imperfect in its own way, but also something to be leveraged deeply across many domains. And I'm curious, as a CEO, how are you creating a culture where people feel safe experimenting and kind of leveraging all of these different tools without fearing for their jobs necessarily?
Yeah. And I think what we did here was we took our leadership team, we got everybody together. We're a remote organization, and
Mm-hmm.
we took our leadership team away and had some speakers come from Singularity University, which I had gotten to know, I guess, maybe 10 years back, frankly, when they were talking about exponential technologies. And I don't actually even remember if AI was one of the technologies we dove into at the time, which was kind of interesting. But we had some renowned speakers talk to us in kind of like scary ways exponential
Mm-hmm.
technologies could impact our lives, robotics, and and it's scary in the terms of, wow, it's amazing what exponential technologies can do, just to really like get people kind of on the edge of their seats. And then took another framing of, okay, here are some practical ways, startups are applying AI to business, to data, to tech, just how we might to human resources. And so we could kind of bring us all back down to earth to say, okay, if we're not taking your function, our company, our customers, if we're not applying AI in our day-to-day life, we're probably missing the boat somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Either just reach out to one of these companies and see if we could work with them on something, or experiment with ChatGPT, with Claude,
Mm-hmm.
with Gemini, and do something there ourselves. So I think one, just introducing folks and then encouraging people to practice and to leverage. We also ask everyone, before they've presented anything or before they've run something by, whether they're a supplier, whether they're a team member, we always say like, well, what did ChatGPT think, and
Mm-hmm.
so we're just making sure that they're getting that input. So not to say that there shouldn't be a fear of getting fired, but it's almost like, if you're not using AI, then yeah, your job will be at risk. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
there should be a little bit of a fear factor.
Yeah.
Because if you're
Just
not
in the
using,
other direction, it
yes,
sounds
yeah.
like.
And so, especially for a startup where we're trying to be disruptive and we're assuming, that most of our competitors are probably not leveraging this technology as much. We're trying to move really fast. So yeah, that's something where we think that could be. Now, our business, we're home services, so we are
Mhm,
very much relying on humans in homes
mhm,
helping people solve problems. So to that extent, at our front lines, we think that's a way that we can make people feel really secure.
mhm.
Eventually, yeah, robots are going to be in homes and people are still going to need help plugging them in and training them and teaching them. So that's something where we will ultimately, I think, be a home for people who are going to, lose jobs to some of these technologies. So
Mm,
I think in that sense, we can provide some comfort. Yeah, it's not
mhm.
to say we can't. I don't think anyone should necessarily be promising that you're not
Yeah.
going to lose your job to AI, but certainly we will be adding jobs on our front lines
Mhm.
because of this technology.
Yeah, it's there's so much in there that I kind of want to like dig into.
Yeah,
One, this piece around, there are clear roles that you want and kind of prefer people to be doing in your
yeah,
organization, which I think is a really unique thing. More and more, I think different organizations actually will fall somewhere on the spectrum in
hmm,
that, and I think it's great that you're kind of recognizing where you do fall in that. And then there's this piece around capability and actually saying this is one of the things we want to get better at as an
yeah,
organization,
yeah,
and to kind of incentivize people to continue to grow their capacity in the organization. And
yeah,
especially in a startup context, I think this works really well, where
right,
there's something about disconnecting people from their positions, right? So even if your position changes and evolves, that just means you can now step into new roles.
right,
And and the more you upskill yourself, the more you can kind of be versatile and step into a whole range of different kinds of roles. And that's a little bit of what I'm hearing in what you're saying, which
absolutely,
is, yeah,
absolutely,
incentivizing people to continue to grow, continue to experiment, and really leverage the technology as much as
yeah,
possible. I think
yeah,
that's a really smart play, and especially I think for like startups or smaller organizations that already run a lean ship, if you
right,
will. I
yeah,
think that works really well. I think where the threat is maybe greater is for organizations that already have a little bit of just too many layers in the middle, and some degree of organizational bloat. But even then, I think there's some space for reimagining what that means and what that looks like.
yeah. I mean, I think one example is PR for us. So
Mm,
we decided we weren't as happy with well, we just didn't see, we weren't seeing as much of an ROI with
mm-hmm,
the outsourcing our PR. And
mm-hmm,
maybe there was some cockiness there too. We felt like we were writing it more and
mm-hmm,
more. We could see the kind of characteristics of
mm-hmm.
AI in our press releases. So, yeah, we just
Yeah.
said, okay, let's just bring that in house. We kind of gave our tools, our AI tools, the formula here. This is the facts of the
Mm-hmm,
piece. Here's the formula for how these things are written. And oh,
mm-hmm,
by the way, can you just tell me how do I pitch to the media? Who should I call and
mm-hmm.
stuff? And at the end of the day, you still have to. I mean, AI can write you the emails, they can send the emails, they
Yeah.
can finally respond, but you still do have to execute. You still do have to like be the one fishing to the media, and when you don't get a response, you've got to pick up the phone and call,
Mm-hmm.
and so yeah, and I'm doing that now. So I
Yeah.
have never run PR. I have never taken that on myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I am, learning the new skills. So I do
Yeah.
think that you are, in a sense, we're kind of, like you said, we're putting somebody out of a job, but on the other hand,
Mm-hmm.
you're, turning on some new skill. And along the way, I'm realizing like, oh, that's something that they didn't do, but I think that would be an interesting, way to do this that I've never seen it before. And And so experimenting and innovating along the way too is something that,
Hmm.
can be a value add, and I think will be great for companies and for society.
Yeah, I think there's this huge piece around like building or upgrading functions that,
Yeah.
maybe we used to have to rely for, go outside of ourselves for. And
Hmm.
especially in a startup context, that makes so much sense to be able to run things more internally. And again, I think there's this piece there of like, there's still somebody, who is still driving that and doing that work. And I think of it as like direction and decision making. Those are two things that we still need people to be fueling, right? Like
Yeah. Hmm.
clarifying, what are you trying to achieve? What's the message?
Yeah.
All of that, the prompting piece.
Right.
But more deeply than that, it's like, what is it that we need, and clarifying all of that. And then on the other hand, I think it's making decisions like, does
Right.
this work?
Right.
Does this work for our particular audience? All of that. So that's a really neat way to transform things. And I feel like I'm hearing from a lot of startups that is one of the things I think of, expertise that you would have had to go outside for is now more at your own fingertips.
Yes. I think
And
that's right. It is empowering in a way, isn't it? Hmm.
yeah, my personal use case, this is not necessarily professional, but
Yeah.
I lived abroad for about 5 years, quite recently, and I've actually just moved back recently.
Okay.
And living abroad, taxes are very complex. You still have to file taxes in the
Right.
US, and they
Right.
tend to be very complex. And it's just been such a relief to have, some place to
Guidance.
go to
Yeah.
ask like very bespoke, specific
Right.
questions.
Yeah.
And to also say like, give me the source so I can like double
Yeah.
check your work,
Yeah.
etc. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
but that's
Hmm.
definitely something that I've really appreciated. And just
Yeah.
as like a
Totally.
mild hypochondriac, just being like, do I need to worry about this or not?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I diagnosed my daughter with croup while we were like in the mountains without any, like, I needed to take her to the ER, which I
Oh,
wouldn't have known. Yeah, she just needed
yeah,
a shot of a steroid
yeah,
or whatever. And I
yeah,
would
yeah,
have,
yeah.
I would not a shot. She's not like on steroids. She needed to take a steroid medication,
I got you.
and I would have probably just waited a couple days and not have known
Right.
how challenging her breathing was. But yeah, they diagnosed her, really quickly. So the days of WebMD and reading 85,
Yeah.
Google things
Right.
and just basically totally dismissing them because they would say she had cancer and was dying. Now you can kind of get
Yeah.
it right on the money. It's super helpful. You're right in all, like I said at the beginning, in all elements of life.
Yeah, and just I think again, like having intelligence and expertise readily available,
Yeah.
I think is a massive thing. And I love the idea of like empowering the entire organization to leverage that and step
Hmm.
into that. So that it's
Hmm.
not just a few people in like a few pockets of the organization, but you're actually inviting a whole lot of people into that.
Yeah. Hmm.
But I do want to talk about your leadership team, and across your leadership team, where have you seen AI being used most effectively today? And where are there maybe areas of like untapped potential?
Yeah, thanks. I think two areas where we're seeing it being used and still feel like, I mean, it's been incredible, the progress, but I would say, we've probably spent, in terms of time, you
Hmm.
know, um, 60 hours total. I mean, the amount of time to impact is,
Mm,
so small to huge. And so there's still so much more we can do. And that's in the area of supply chain for us. We've been at this for 2 years, our company. And so we have amassed a lot more information. We
hmm.
have, a lot more clients now. We have learned a lot more. So we can throw a lot more into our tools.
Hmm.
And now we can, and we've really been flying blind. We kind of felt like almost, and now we
Right.
can throw a lot into these tools. And like you said, poke and prod a little bit. And so,
Yeah.
over the course of like last weekend, for example, my co-founder came out of the weekend with a real clearly defined cost savings opportunity in just one kind of real, element of our strategy. And if we do that times like 20 other across 20
Mm,
other key areas of our supply chain, it's going to be significant cost savings, real alignment around our organization, and just a complete game changer. So supply chain is going to be really compelling for us, and really
mm,
excited about that. We're
hmm.
just looking at it from a cost savings perspective, but I can
Yeah,
see from an innovation side,
yeah.
from a training side, from R&D. So that'll be great. The second um, area has been um, around, let's see, how would I put this? I guess like one of our teammates has just been building agents to try to
Hmm.
help understand. There's just a lot of complexity in our business, right? We
Hmm.
go, it's a smart home integration. So we go into homes across the country and we assess the needs of a home, or if it's a new build, and we're putting in wires to make sure that the home one day has what it needs to, install televisions, have
Hmm.
speakers, have motorized shades, have alarm systems, really, customized video, surveillance videos, all those types of things. And then we install all of those things. I mean, these could be $100,000, $500,000, $1 million projects
Mm,
that could take years and years. And then we maintain and service them over time.
hmm.
So there's a lot of data that we have access to, and
Right.
these putting together, for example, a plan, a proposal for a client around what that could look like in their home or how much that could cost historically, and still takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of engineering and design, and we've built a tool now where you put together some dimensions, kind of roughly what a client needs, and we can pretty much spit out a rough order of magnitude of cost, for example. Another example, back to supply chain, we
Hmm.
had kind of contracts here, contracts there, depending on who we had
Mm,
acquired or who, which dealer we had done a franchise with. And we have now an agent that we can just say, hey, where's the contract for so and so? And it will go
right.
across our SharePoint and find that in a matter of moments. And today, just before this meeting, my co-founder sent me a document right before we had another call where he
Hmm.
had a full, not just kind of summary, but real synthesis and assessment of who we
Hmm.
were talking to, where kind of the points were that we wanted to make, what all of
Hmm.
our prior interactions were, where we could head
Nice.
strategically with this. I mean, it's just incredible in terms of what those points were. Um,
Yeah,
where
can
can
I
you,
just want to respond a little bit before we go to the untapped
yeah,
pieces.
yeah, great.
It's cool. Like, there's like a knowledge management piece that you spoke about. There's this piece of like
Yeah,
helping you show up more strategically,
yeah,
that you're
yeah,
speaking about. And there's this piece around like if like operational efficiency with the cost savings, et cetera. And I like how multidimensionally you and your leadership are really thinking about this. One of the big things I want to keep emphasizing is that, again, like we need to stop thinking about this as just like a simple tool, that's just going to help us get from A to B faster. I think this kind of redefines how we may even get from A to B.
yeah,
It kind of gives us the opportunity to examine, is B even the right place for us to be getting to, you know?
yeah.
So there's it's more than just like, one dimensional, it's more than a one dimensional lever. And I think what you're speaking to really points to that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's something to be said for just experimentation or
Yeah.
something that's snagging at you in terms of you have a sense there's a cost issue, and you
Right.
do have a pileup of information or data, just sort of feeding that, poking and prodding. You'll probably come up with something, might not be perfect, but it'll help
Mm,
you formulate, okay, this is the thing I need to go and
yeah.
better understand. And at least then that helps you formulate the better input to go get a really
Right.
good output.
Yeah.
Um, where we could do better is probably sales. I mean, where this all started for me was I was
Hmm.
at a conference where I heard a friend who also had started another successful startup, and he was talking about how he, didn't have a need to really hire Salesforce, and therefore really didn't have a need to do any more capital raising and funding. And it was completely different from the last startup he had done. And that's what really got me thinking around, shoot, are we, putting these tools to work? And so there's a point there, right, which is go out and find out what others are doing. You can't just put your head down and kind of worry about it. You should ask around, read, and find out what people are doing. Like, this podcast is a great thing that people should listen to. But I always think about his business is very different from ours. It's more in software and those types of things. But I do think that that ours is a very sales heavy business, and it's in-home sales. But I do wonder in our organization, how we could better employ sales. So that's something that we could probably, that's one that I just think could be better unlocked.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you're kind of looking at both problems or pain points and imagining how could we do this differently, as well as opportunities, things that maybe are working just fine, but actually someone else is doing it slightly differently. What does that mean? Let's learn from that. And one of the things that I love about what I think as a consultant, I feel like I've been wanting to and championing for a long time, which is continuous improvement, getting from A to B in an iterative way. And I think this, kind of really demands that agile mindset of you're testing and learning your way to the solution rather than perfect planning or, figuring it out in your own head. It's actually, it has to meet reality, and you have to keep testing it and evolving it. So I really love that.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's great.
Looking at your data, your tools, and your people, what feels most ready for AI in your organization, and what maybe feels risky?
Yeah, like I said, I think supply chain, and I think continuing to figure out how we can disrupt the existing customer experience feels most ready. Because one of the gaps in our current existing experience for clients in this space, just in general, it's a $30 billion existing market. And again, what we do is there's 20,000 dealers out there. We've been buying and franchising, and now we've got 25 locations. So we're the largest kind of national brand in this space. So we're trying to create kind of a consistent experience for the client, but because of the complexity here, it does take our salespeople and our engineers a minute to, and by a minute, I mean, it could take anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks to pull together an accurate proposal. And then the client comes back and says, no, I wanted lighting in this room, or no, wait, hold on, that is very expensive. Can we put it here or there? Or the builder says, yep, that's perfect. But then the interior designer says, nope, I've changed my mind. And so, you can just imagine. And the bigger the project, the more back and forth. And so just cutting down the time there, for example, is a real practical way that not only could we improve, our own, operations and financial profile, but also improve, our experience for our builders and for our clients. So that's one very simple example. And I just shared with you, we built a tool so we can give people kind of that rough order of magnitude, but very soon we'll be able to be a lot more scientific about it, which is really exciting. Marketing, I think, is another example where I think there's a lot of ways that we can be a lot more scientific around who to target, how to target them, what to say, where are they shopping? How are they? And our target is right now, a high-end consumer. We're sort of a luxury brand. And as it turns out, this is a target who is hard to find. She's not, she doesn't shop where I shop, I guess. And she's on different channels. She's talking to her interior designer for advice in terms of how to fill out her home. She's not like walking down the aisles of Target,
Right,
like
right,
I am
right.
probably.
Yeah.
So that's that, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just hard
Yeah.
for us to kind of tap into that and
Yeah.
some of the traditional, channels for marketing that I was used to in prior lives. So that's
Mm-hmm.
something where the more that we can, leverage and get smarter through, machine learning,
Mm-hmm.
the better for us. So I think those are some of those examples in a very interesting business that has long needed,
Mm.
a little bit of disruption. Now
Yeah.
we're a franchise organization, so franchising is pretty interesting. It's
Mm-hmm.
I would say also could use a little bit of disruption, just in the
Mm-hmm.
sense that it has historically, had kind of like the same model, same expectations, and I think that we could um, with kind of and it very human based, like very services based. And so
Mm-hmm.
I think that building out tools that could be very custom,
Mm.
for that unique owner based on their experience, based on their
Mm-hmm.
market, marketing
Mm-hmm.
operations, supply chain, that's going to be, really interesting and helpful and something that yeah, that's going to not, like you said at the start. I mean, it's not something that's going to be optional, right? It's going to
Mm-hmm.
be necessary for moving forward. Yeah.
Yeah, I think personalization especially is going to be more and more the sort of name of the game. And
Yeah.
I think it's wise that, you're um, leveraging these tools to figure that out. Is
Yeah.
there anything that stands out to you from a people perspective? Anything that's, top of mind, or how you're thinking about the people in your organization and how to continue to support and develop them?
Yeah. On the people side, we talent at the for the front lines for
Hmm.
salespeople is critical because we're growing rapidly. We're starting up these small businesses through these franchise
Hmm.
businesses across the country, and we're looking for high skilled talent, and they're hard to find.
Hmm.
So we're trying to we've opened up the talent pool by saying, because it's 99% are men. So one, you can, use AI to really, scour the internet, LinkedIn, Indeed, and
Hmm.
make sure that you're faster than like a human could,
Hmm.
finding the exact kind of five people that you might want to talk to, setting up those interviews, getting them in the door,
Hmm.
doing the background search. You just can do it way faster than you could
Yeah.
back when I was running like a home cleaning company, and time is always
Yeah.
of the essence in services.
Hmm.
So, that's number one. And but number two, we're widening that talent pool,
Hmm.
because it's always been men, and there's no, in our industry, there's no trade school for this. There's HVAC trade
Mm.
schools, plumbing trade, but there's not even really a great definition of what this space is. And
Mm.
so obviously it's a lot, but women are just as talented at math
Yeah.
and science as men. So, and coding. So why shouldn't we be, if we've got to train someone anyway, why not,
Mm.
train women just as much as we're training up men? So identifying like what makes a really great technician, um,
Mm.
putting gender aside, and using
Yeah.
AI to go out and find, again, on, you know not just LinkedIn, but are they working in Apple stores, are they at Best Buy, like where are these people, and how can we go kind of pluck them out and get them in a 2-week kind of coding course or whatever,
Yeah.
and then put them in an apprentice program. And we've had a lot of success with that.
That's so
That's been
cool.
fantastic. Yeah, that's, I mean, obviously from a social imperative and as a woman, I am excited about that. But just from a
Hmm.
business perspective, it
Hmm.
just makes like absolute sense, and it's a real competitive advantage if you're doubling the talent pool to be able to, get because we just our limitation to growth is just going to be, do we have enough people who can do the work?
Mm. Yeah. And it's sort of like, I love that. And again, it goes back to, can we reimagine how this gets done?
Yeah.
what else is possible and how can we
Yeah.
leverage all of the different, tools at our disposal to make that happen.
Yeah.
My last question for you, Hagan, is just what advice would you give to another senior leader or founder or CEO out there who's thinking about, like AI and AI transformation and what that means for their company? What would you say to them?
Well, I think AI transformation, those all sound like giant words, So I think like you've been talking about just breaking it down into, problems that you're just trying to solve, experimenting with the tool, even in your personal, life.
Yeah,
What should we have for dinner? These are the things I have in the pantry. Those types of things are
yeah,
just ways to kind of get more comfortable with these tools. And I would say too, just being vulnerable with the sense that we've been talking the last couple of weeks with our leadership team about and by leadership team I mean the general managers across our
yeah.
businesses about vulnerability and about being learners and not knowers.
Mm,
So it's not so much a mindset of, hey guys, have you all learned about, have you all done your AI? Have you all become AI experts this week? Because none of us are AI knowers, and none of us are transformation knowers. But
right.
if we can all just be learners and have a learner mindset and admit that we don't really, none of us, probably, at least not in my organization, none of us know anything about really what's going to be possible, what is possible. But we have a learner mindset and we
Mm,
just say, I saw what you just did in that meeting and what you built, but I have no idea, how you
yeah.
did it or what you built, and can you walk me through it? And that's the learner mindset, and working with your group and with your leadership team or with the rest of your employees around, going into meetings and making sure people aren't,
Mm,
feeling pressure to pretend like they know. That's something else
yeah.
we talk about it. So it's a lot of like more human, like
Yeah.
it's the same leadership skills that we should have been practicing and learning. It's just now on a different topic. I think that's probably the advice that I would give. And one example is my co-founder introduced us to a tool where our sales team now can be recorded and they can um,
Mm,
an AI will evaluate how well they did or what
yeah.
led to a sale or not a sale, um and my co-founder knew right away that this was something we need to, like, he was willing to put
Mm,
personal money to this because he knew it was such a good
yeah.
idea. And I at first was just like, agreed, that sounds great, but in my mind I was like, I don't understand it. I don't know why we're going to do it. But I just kind of went with it. I think a
Mm,
learner mindset would be like, can you explain that to me? Like, how do we think that's
right.
helpful? Um, and I think at least I had the learner mindset to be like, all right, let's just go for it and I'll
Right.
figure it out as we go along. And I did. But yeah, I think just having kind of a little bit of that, but it's okay to have a question mark instead of like, a period on this stuff is probably a good thing.
Yeah, one of the things that I think I love about AI is I think the reward cycle for I'm trying something and I'm either rewarded with the result or rewarded with the learning. It's
Yeah.
just so much shorter, because I think this the growth mindset is useful and powerful and again something that I've been championing for a long time. But I think now people can feel it, right? It's not
Yeah.
just a theory anymore.
Yeah.
Hagan, it's been such a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for sharing
Thanks
your
for reaching out.
insights.
Thanks
I
for reaching
really
out.
love
A lot
the
of it
growth
just
mindset that you're bringing to the
yeah.
table.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
Same.
yeah.
Thanks, Usha. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.